Hello, this is Brad Wild, or Brad. We are in Aspen, Colorado, KASE, or Kilo Alpha Sierra Echo. And we're going to be taking off to the north and then turning south and flying to New Mexico. There's a little airport down there called Angel Fire, and we'll be making an RNAV approach. It's about the same altitude as Aspen. We're going to be flying the Carenado King Air B200. So here's our route. We'll be flying out of Aspen and making a turn to the south. And it doesn't look like it makes much sense because it's all jagged. But if you load the low altitude instrument chart, you can see that we are flying airways all the way down. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to plug all these waypoints into the Garmin and allow the Garmin to get us down there. Let me just show you that RNAV approach. So we'll be coming from this direction and then picking up our initial approach fix here, and because of the mountains here, we have to take this route, and we just can't come in this direction. We have to come in this way to avoid, again, avoiding these higher mountains in the area. So I plugged all that into the flight plan feature here in SkyVector and clicked Navlog, and it gave me this list of waypoints and their coordinates, and I copied all of that over to X-Plane Tools Flight Plan Converter and made an FMS file that I'm going to load into the Garmin once we get things started up in the airplane. So it's late afternoon. Those of you who follow these know I like to fly early morning or late afternoon, just for the beautiful lighting. So let's get things rolling, but before we do, we need to close things up here. So we'll close the passenger door, and we'll clear out the chocks and so on, and we'll leave the winglets and window reflections. That's just fine. And now we're ready to climb in. We will be starting cold and dark, and while I have not flown this aircraft very much, or at least recently, it's pretty easy to get started. But our master switch is here, and we just flip it up. And while we're down here, let's turn on our beacon and our nav lights just so that people know there's activity in the cockpit. These tend to be a little bit bright. We can adjust them later, but we don't need overhead. We want our prop sync on, and then we want to make sure that these are on. It's not a very good angle here. These should both be on low idle, and we'll be starting with our right engine. Now notice when I did that, it armed the auto ignition, and then once things get up to RPM, we'll want to turn on our generator. And now we're ready for our left engine. Make sure our generator switch is turned on, and we can turn on our avionics, and now we're ready to program our Garmin. Alright, Garmin 430 front and center. I've got my flight plan screen pulled up. By the way, the Garmins that come with X-Plane, as nice as they are, bear little resemblance to an actual Garmin. Maybe that's why it says X-Plane 430, but some of the principles apply. So the first thing we want to do is get that flight plan loaded. So make sure nothing is selected. What I mean is make sure nothing is highlighted like that. And then you can click the inside of the small button and then select your flight plan, and we want this one, K Alpha Sierra Echo, and I just click enter. If I go over, you can see that it has indeed put in all of our waypoints. Not sure why now let me see if I can scroll through them. Well, we don't want that. We can just get rid of that. Don't need the actual airport. And Skier, because it's so close, it's only 3 miles away, it probably won't come into play, so we can go ahead and clear that. Now everything has disappeared, so what you have to do is make this a fly direct to, and we'll activate it, and you'll see that it has populated all of our waypoints, and then we can scroll through and see all of the ones that we have in, and this is our RNAV approach. Down at the bottom, and as we get closer, we can actually select an RNAV approach. And if we wanted to look at our route, this will toggle back and forth between our nav screen and our flight plan screen. They call them groups. So you can see our route here. But that's all we really need to be concerned with right now. So we are ready for takeoff. Make sure our condition levers are all the way forward. There we go. By the way, this aircraft does have an autopilot, and we will be using that. So stand by. Drop some flaps here. You can see our flaps right here. And if we wanted to just see where we are in relationship to the runway, there's a local map. Let me just zoom in. Whoops. So we will want to taxi down to this end. Alright, we have been cleared for takeoff, but just a couple things I want to double check. mainly lighting here. Let me get rid of this again. Landing lights on, taxi off, strobe on. We have our flaps set. We have high RPMs on our condition levers. All lights green here. Just want to set an altitude here of flight level 210. Make sure our autopilot is ready to go. Make sure that's on GPS. For some reason it got flipped over. So, we're ready to taxi into position. Lined up here. And toga power. Little squirrely here. Bring it down to our red line and rotate. Gear up. We shouldn't have a problem with our mountains, hopefully. And we can retract our flaps. Yep, it's up. And we can begin turning towards the south. Again, I might as well just hand fly this. Watching our airspeed and rate of climb. And we'll be heading southward. Let's pull up our autopilot and see if we can't engage that. Keep it about 2,000. Although that might be a little bit much. About 1,400. So we should stop about 182. Not sure why we're continuing to turn. There we go, we're straightening out. Let's see what where we are in relationship to our flight plan or to our route, our plotted route. Okay, we're just headed back towards it. Let's zoom in a little bit. So it's just correcting. Now we have a message. It's saying set the CRS to 185. See if I can do it. There we go. So when we see that needle come across, we will be lined up. So Kazoo, our first waypoint, just 24 miles. Watching our airspeed here. Frame rate is unacceptable. I know that the King Air sucks a lot of FPS, so maybe I need to turn down my clouds here. Let's see what happens. We'll just go with clear, see what happens. Takes a second. I think might have to go back and do it again. So we picked up a few in terms of frame rates. And let's see what's going on now. Hopefully we're turning back towards our... No, I don't want message. There we go. So we should be turning back towards the west a tad. You can see that our CDI needle is about lined up. And we can come back on our condition levers. You'll see the RPM there drop. And you can see that we are right on track here. So we want to make sure that it says autopilot because it can flip off. But everything else looks nominal. Frame rates are not terrible. When they drop below 20, I get a little nervous. I love sky vector clouds, but they can really tax your system if you have really aggressive settings, especially in an aircraft like this that's greatly detailed. Some are a lot kinder on the frame rate. So let's take a look at our route, but this time let's zoom out a little bit. So here's our waypoint. Now the Garmin 530, or I should say the X-Plane 530, has a couple of extra screens to it. There's plenty of room for it in this aircraft. I don't know why they didn't bother. Maybe in the future. By the way, I was not talking during that because it's just too loud, but I was looking for the airport, but I think we're too far south at this point. So we are at our cruising altitude. And we can up our torque for cruise. And again, we're right on target here. So I'll get back to you a little bit later as we get further down the pike. So we've begun our turn over HBU, Hotel Baker Uniform. Just pull that up on the map. So we came down this direction and now we're headed south-southeast, or I should say east-southeast. So here's our route. We just made this turn here. So we're headed in that direction. And so our next waypoint, Lewis, 37 miles. And not much to see, just mountains. So we're coming up on Lewis, and just to show you that, here's Lewis, and we'll be making a turn towards the south again. By the way, notice that in the Garmin you do get notification that it's about ready to turn. So right to 150, turning now. And here we go. And next waypoint, Hickory, I guess that's how you would say it. We look back at our map. Hickory, home, ALS, VOR. And at Zotos, we veer off and head towards our RNAV approach. So somewhere in here, we will want to select that on our Garmin. So back with you in a while. Alright, we're reaching or getting close to our top of descent, so we do want to pay some attention to our approach. So I'm just looking at an altitude that we need to be at for our initial approach fix, and it looks like 18, or 12 12,800, and finally our initial fix is 12.7, so not a big difference. So we're right about here now. So let's just think about that. I've done a little planning ahead. On this particular nav screen, you have some vertical navigation. So I plugged in our target altitude of 1200, and we want to be right there at, however you say that, zippy. We're going to descend at 1500. Actually, it's probably going to be more like 1400. So we can just, oops, go back to that. By the way, if you hold the clear button down for 5 seconds, you'll get your map back. I'm just going to make that 1400 because that's the setting in this aircraft on the, so we're about there, so we can begin our descent now. These two basically need to match. So let's begin our descent. Pull back on the power a little bit and dial in our altitude. And we can begin our vertical descent and down. I'm going to increase that a little bit, 1600. Back to our map. So we are just about ready to turn off of our airway here. So we begin that turn. And we've got, let's see, 20 miles. So it's giving us an ETA of 4 minutes. So at this rate of descent, we should be fine. Slow it down a little bit. So we can go ahead and select an approach. And we're going to be using, yes, and we'll go ahead and load that. And basically just repeated the ones that we already put in. It would have done it for us. See, our ground speed is still 250, but we'll see that come down. We're going to be heading back into the mountains right now. We're kind of over a flat area. It's hard to see in the clouds. There, that's better. So we're going to be headed kind of through this pass, I guess you'd call it. Doesn't look like we're going to actually clear the mountains, but I just hope the chart is right. We'll see. So again, we're somewhere in this area right here. So we'll be coming up on our initial approach fix here. So below the clouds. So we're going to miss our target a little bit, but we still have a ways to go before we actually need to be at 17 or 12.7. Going to reset my view here. I set my 5 key on my numeric pad for kind of front and center. And that is my number 8 key, my number 2 key, 4 key, 6 key. I don't get that view. Maybe I should reset them for something a little bit more interesting. So we're ready to make that turn any second. Actually now. So we just missed it. Whoops, still coming down. We don't want that. Stop. And we want, not sure what happened there. Oh, somehow this got tweaked. We need to be at 17. Or thereabouts. So let's just get back up there. I don't want to get in any trouble here. Yeah, that was dicey. Yeah, when you're around mountains, you want to follow the chart. So we're just 10 miles out from our turn. See, it's doing it again. I'm not sure what the deal is there. I'm obviously missing something, aren't I? Yes, I didn't have altitude select. So let's see if that is a little bit better. Take a look at our map. Zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I think that was the secret. Did not have altitude select. Maybe you saw that. So, if the button is bright, then it's off. So I can go ahead now and dial in pattern altitude, which would be about 9,300 feet. So after we begin our turn, we can begin a descent. So we've got a little ways to go. So I assume the airport is off to the right in that valley. We could probably come back on our airspeed once we make that turn in 12 seconds. Coming up on Omley. There we go. And we can go ahead and begin our descent. Set it for 600, see how we do. And we're heading here for Shimoff. I can see the runway off in the distance. So that's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and run our condition levers full forward. Back on our power. I suppose I could have turned off our landing lights, but I did not. My bad. And we should turn towards final here at Woden in just a second. Okay, we'll put the gear down. And I think we can just go ahead and kill our autopilot. And let's get a notch of flaps in there. Got a few too many flaps actually. Airspeed is a little low, not good. Trying to trim the airplane, get the nose back up. Yeah, there we go. And I'm glad we have some VASI lights there in the end to help with our descent. We want red over white. Full flaps. Well, got two whites, so we're a little high. It's kind of hard to gauge. That looks like a narrow runway. I think the runway is 8,500 feet. Probably because of the altitude, some aircraft probably need that kind of length. And I'm curious if we'll have any scenery here. Methinks not. There we go, we can decrease our rate of descent. We've got red over white. Whoop, boy, it's tricky here. Every guide slope's a little different. It'd be a little easier in the day because we could just eyeball it. Yeah, I don't see any scenery. Whoa, little float there. All right. Reverse. Well, that's it, folks. No place to taxi to, but an interesting approach. So I think we'll just part company here, but thanks for joining me, and be sure to let me know if there's anything you'd like to see, besides land on an aircraft carrier. All right, until next time.